So I got this idea that I wanted to do maybe one last CD. The last CD I did in the quartet was nearly 10 years ago. And anyway, I was getting this idea because I wanted to bring together some music from the past, some music from the present, and create an album. Creating an album these days is a bit difficult because in the end it all just goes on the internet and it gets lost and mixed up. But I had a series of tunes I wanted to present or re-present to the world, including old tunes and new tunes, but in the context of this new quartet with whom I'm very, very happy. So just when I was ready to do this CD, we then had COVID, which was fantastic. So we lost 2 years sending demos backwards and forwards on the internet. And you'll see some of the pictures in the studio with guys in masks. I hope people will look back and think, how did we do that? And this won't become normal, because it was a weird experience recording with masks, really weird. I found I was living near to one of the best jazz recording studios in Italy, that's Best in Montesilvano, and that was really useful because I could go there 10 minutes walk and do my overdubs and mixing whenever I wanted, and Claudio and Domenica were fantastic. And I got the flute sound that I wanted, and once, you know, when your own instrument sounds good, you start to feel good about everything. So we decided we wanted a signature sound for this record. I mean, sometimes you go into a studio and you use all the instruments you've got and every tune has its own sound. But we decided we were going to have the same 4 instruments in all the tunes, and fortunately Raffaele had an original Fender Rhodes electric piano, an instrument I love. So with all the technical difficulties involved with using a vintage instrument, that was a challenge, but it also gave a particular sound. The flute and Fender Rhodes, it's a sound that I love from the 70s, so we kept to that sound for the whole record. Even in tunes where I might have thought maybe the acoustic piano, because on my last record Yamaha gave us a Yamaha grand piano, but I said no, let's just use the Fender for the whole time, and I think it's worked. I started working with Yamaha back in 2011 when I became a Yamaha artist. That doesn't mean they give me a wage, but it does mean they've made lots of stuff possible. Like when I go to another country, maybe they'll pay my expenses, they just help making things happen. And Yamaha flutes are fantastic. They don't pay me to say that, I have to say they are fantastic. So it's just been a fantastic collaboration for the last 10, 11 years. They've just helped making things happen. I had a particular idea about this record. I wanted to present little duets, little dialogues between me and individually each of the members of the group. I started this idea on the last record when there were 2 duets, but I wanted them to be completely improvised, just short little dialogues, about a minute and a half, sometimes a bit freaky. And I put this to the guys and they just looked at me as if I was mad, basically. So went in the studio and we had a great time. They just little snippets, little excerpts of dialogue between me and the piano, me and the bass, me and the percussion. So after each quartet track, you've got a little duet, a dialogue, where you can actually hear clearly the sound of the flute with the sound of the bass, or the sound of the flute with the sound of the drums. you can hear clearly the instruments and how they relate to each other. That was the idea of the duets. I'm very happy with them. So there's one bonus track on this album, which is a song, and I don't write songs very often. I write one song about every 10 years because I'm very slow in writing lyrics, because I'm very fussy with lyrics. So I wrote this song called The Last Word, and I was even thinking maybe we should call the album The Last Word, because maybe it's my last CD. And the guys looked at me and said, well, that sounds like an epitaph. So I thought, oh, okay. And then I found out that Tubby Hayes did an album called The Last Word 50 years ago, so that was out. But the CD finishes with the bonus track, The Last Word, which is sung by my friend Lorena Fontana, great singer, and I've known her since the 80s. In fact, I think our first gig was in London in the 80s together. She came on this one just to sing this song for us. So thanks, Lorena. I should also thank my wife, Marzio del Biondo, for playing the extra flutes, because there's a flute section on that particular song. Yeah, on this record, you will also find two compositions that aren't mine. And this is, I think, the first time in my life that I go and play standards. Not they're really standards, but they're tunes, they're not mine. I spent most of my life recording on my records my own music, like a lot of people do, and not spending much time recording standard repertoire. I play it, but I don't necessarily feel even that I have the right to record it. Others have done it better. But there were two tunes I really wanted to put on this album. One is a tune made famous by Herbie Mann in memory of Elizabeth Reed. It's a rock tune from the 70s by the Allman Brothers, which Herbie Mann, in his eclectic way, recorded on alto flute, and I've more or less taken his arrangements, personalized it a little bit because I liked it so much. So that's a rock tune revisited by Herbie Mann and then revisited by me because I liked it so much. It's a great tune. The other tune that I didn't write is a tribute to, well, the Soft Machine. Soft Machine was the first jazz rock group I listened to, extremely formative for my teens. I spent my teens listening to prog rock and free jazz, basically, and jazz rock. And the Soft Machine, who are from Kent, my county, were very important for me. There's a tune by Mike Ratlish called Jezol Reut, I think that's how you pronounce it, which really struck me. It's on their 6th album, and I thought we could do that. So I presented it to the band, and they really got into it, and I think we've done a respectable version of Mike Ratlish's tune. Why record a CD in 2022? I still ask myself that. I really wanted to bring together some ideas, some tunes of mine from the past and the present, like I said, and I just needed to revisit those tunes with my current quartet. And I got the idea this might be the last CD I make. Not that I'm going to depart this world or anything, but I hope not. But CDs are becoming a rarity, but I felt the need to do one more production, one more collection of my music. So that's why this CD happened. It took 2 or 3 years to put together because we had COVID in the middle. I'm very happy it's coming out on Wide Sound, on an Italian label this time. And that's why a CD now, maybe my last CD. The Lonely Cool was actually a tune I wrote in a bedsit in Hackney, East London, in 1981. And I wrote it for alto flute, and I wrote it for my London-based band. It was very popular with the band. They really got into it. It became our opening number. That was our signature tune, our theme tune, The Lonely Cool. Why The Lonely Cool? The 3 words come from a Bruce Springsteen song. The Lonely Cool Before Dawn, I think was the line. I can't remember the song. I just like the sound of the words, no particular meaning. It could be talking about a freshness in the morning, or it could be talking about a person. Who is this guy, the Lonely Cool? Who is the cool? Maybe it's the guy on the front of the record. We don't know. But I like that sound. The interesting thing about this tune is that opening bass riff that you'll hear Marco play is probably the earliest bass riff I ever wrote in my life. Probably. In that I remember playing it at jam sessions after hours at school many years ago, when I was still at school. So that riff stayed in my head, and then I put it together into a composition in about 1981, and we recorded it for the BBC in 1982, I think. And then it got recorded in various festivals around Europe in the 80s. And this recent version by the Italian band, I think it goes beyond, because the guys really got into it. I don't know if they feel it is retro or what, but they really got into it, and it's become part of our repertoire. Now, one thing I would like to say is that, this is a quartet fronted by a flute. This one. And that's a rarity. There are some great flute players around Europe. Many of them are also saxophonists. I spent 30 years of my career playing flutes and saxophones, and only for the last 10 years I actually stopped and concentrate on the flute. I thought, let's try and do one thing properly. There is still discrimination. I remember, you try and book a gig for the band and they say, oh, you've got a flute. Does that mean you don't have a trumpet? You don't have a saxophone? You don't have a singer? No, it's a flute. Oh. There is still a lot of ignorance going around. It's a perfectly good instrument. And this band has its particular sound. So it's flute at the front, it's not a saxophone, it's a flute, and it works.